Hey, and we are live. And as you may notice, I am not Shujin Tribble. But welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. A vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of Hey, and we are live. And as you may notice, I am not Shujin Tribble. But welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. A vlogcast
that would open in the background.
Point of view to answer some of the questions of Hey, and we are live. And as you may notice, I am not Shujin Tribble. But welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. A vlogcast
that would open in the background.
Point of view to answer some of the questions. My bad.
So that's what my voice sounds like. That's awesome.
Wow. So when you have multiple windows open, it's a good idea to check that. So sorry, let's start that again. This is the vlogcast that comes from the skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect when people on Facebook didn't like to be told that they were doing facts wrong. Some of this is also to follow the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. And sometimes it's better to check your crap before you go live. Wow.
Luckily, with the elevated IQ of the people in the building here, we were able to tech support ourselves out of the problem.
This is true. There goes my phone telling me that the show is live because apparently I didn't know that already.
Thank you, phone.
So, a little bit of a different lineup tonight, as you may notice, because I am not Shujin Tribble because I royally screwed that up. Shujin.
And you have more hair.
That too, yes. And less facial hair, thankfully. Shujin and the tiny one are off at Fernal Equinox in Toronto this weekend. So he's having fun off on his own doing his thing. And if you follow him on Facebook at all, he's had the odd post and he seems to be having a good old time. Hopefully he'll be dropping by to have dinner in the next couple of nights. But anyway, he's busy, so here we are. And of course, Dallin is still recuperating, although it sounds like he may get to go home on Monday, so this is a good thing. He's been posting some interesting photos of him in hospital gowns. That's always fun. I did not do that when I was in the hospital because I looked like shit. Dudes get away with that a lot easier than we do, apparently, because he didn't look too bad, I gotta say. Although he had all that funny stuff on his face, but... Anyway, he should be back in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. Joey will probably be rolling in as soon as his previous gig is over. Joseph seems to have slept in. So he should be rolling in whenever he decides to get out of bed. That's if he gets out of bed. We shall see. But we, of course, have the... high IQ unrenowned Tech over here. Good morning, Tech.
Good morning. I don't know how high my IQ is, but I try to avoid that stuff as much as possible. I usually just pass, no puff.
Huge IQ.
You have a huge IQ.
We're talking about my IQ up here, right?
Okay.
Okay.
The conversation we were having about large vehicles before the show, you know, he doesn't have a large vehicle, by the way. And
moderate size.
Coming to us from crazy land, we have Ms. Bridget. Good morning, evening, whatever it is over there.
Good evening.
And a special guest all the way from Pennsylvania, and my other co-host, we have Beth. Good morning.
Howdy, howdy.
And welcome back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because, you know.
It's been a while.
It has, but, you know, I don't see enough of her most of the rest of the week, so, you know.
Yeah, staying up lately has been difficult.
That's okay. We'll manage. We'll manage. So... At this week, I actually do have a topic to get to, but before we get to that, and I should mention that this is episode 156 on the docket, Your Honor. I am not going to do a 5-minute freestyle because it took me long enough to find a topic in the first place. So we'll we'll leave the monologues to Shujin. He does them well, and he'll have a good one for next week. I did do a little bit of nosing around, and I have not seen any new information. So before we dive into tonight's topic, we just do want to mention that as of today, it has been 4 years, 8 months, and 32 days since Raif Badawi was unjustly put in prison for thought crimes. And as always, we can't wait for the day that he is released and can come home to his family. So, as I've been talking to some folks lately, I get added to groups on Facebook all the time, and it's kind of annoying because I've never actually sought out a group on Facebook to. Oh no, that's not true. The Atheists on Air group I did. That's the only one. All these other groups, and I must be a member of like 40 or 50 groups, and every few months I go in and delete a bunch too. But people just like add me to groups, and a lot of people will say, don't add me to damn group unless I asked for it, and nobody seems to listen to that. But anyway, end of February, I got added to a group on Facebook and I've talked about the crazy group before that somebody added me to like a year ago. And I stayed in that group because I actually personally know the person that added me, and I figured they added me because they thought I would enjoy it, and I actually do. So that's the crazy group. Well, now I've been added to the extra, extra crazy group because it's full of hardcore right-wing nut job Trump supporters, which is odd because the admins or moderators seem to be not crazy. Like one of them is a black trans woman. So I'm like, how did that happen? But anyway, it's like full of these rabid Trump supporters. And earlier today, I got into a thread, and I will actually read the beginning of this thread, and it kind of sets the tone to what I wanted to talk about tonight. And so apparently this has been going around the net. This is the first time I've seen it. And I spoke to the person who posted it, and they said that it's been going around in her circles, and she'd seen it and reposted it. So I have no idea where the origin came from, but this is the post that I got in discussion with today, and it starts off, and you might recognize this because I think a lot of people may have heard some of this before, slightly differently. It says, "When I was hungry, you canceled my food stamps. When I was thirsty, you diverted lead and coal into my water. When I was sick, you tripled my insurance rates. When I was naked, you raped me and blamed me because I was naked. When I was in prison, you enslaved me to corporations. When I was a stranger with brown skin, you deported me. From the lonely, you took away social programs. From the elderly, you took away meals and medicine. From the workers, you took away legal protections. From the young, you took away school funding. From the victims, you took away shelter. Instead of diversity, you encourage intolerance. Instead of caring, you encourage isolation. Instead of equity, you encourage military excess. When the 1% has ground us into the dust, taken all of our money, and let us die for lack of insurance, who will you feed upon?" And I think the "you" is specifically Trump, and most likely also including his bunch of wacko a government, I don't know, what do you call them? His posse.
Henchmen.
Henchmen, thank you. Yes, all of his henchmen. And weird looking hench ladies that jump around on couches. But anyway, so this garnered this huge debate, and there were the sentiments from the right wingers were just ridiculous. Like, well, we don't want to pay for nobody, and it just it's ridiculous. And one person called the original poster a disgusting person, and just ridiculous. And my thing is, well, what I said was, look at all that right-wing nut job compassion, which translates to I got mine, screw you, and get your own. I didn't quite say that, but I am trying to keep the F-bombs down for Shujin, So what I don't get, and I've often pondered this, is because let's be honest, a lot of right-wing conservatives tend to be religious. Why the hell do they seem to want to give a big old middle finger to those who are in need? Like, I don't get that. So that's what I thought we should talk about tonight is what's with the screw you poor attitude. So we were talking about a few things before the show, so we've got some ideas happening, but I don't know.
Part of the problem is people get used to things.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the lifestyle that I lead right now compared to the lifestyle that, well, let me rephrase that. The lifestyle I led when I was 15 and 16 is completely different than the lifestyle my parents led when they were 15 and 16. We had different technology. We had different programs. We had different medical science. We had different educational backgrounds, things that we know now versus what we knew then, and different standards of living in many different ways. And so my parents, when I was in 15, 16, could see the difference between the two. However, I could not. Now I'm much older. I'm getting up there. Anyway, the point is that I've lived many decades since then.
Youngest one here, actually.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that I've lived many decades since then, and because of that, I can look back at what it was then, and look at what my son is going through now, what he's used to. And so, one of the jobs that I put upon myself as a father, as a parent, is to try to help him develop an understanding that what he is growing up with is a lot better than what I had in many respects, that there's some things that he actually has to pay more attention to that I didn't have to because the technology was different, and because society as a whole was different. And the contrast, he pays attention to the contrast, and then by doing so he becomes aware that things aren't just different. Things don't just change for him, it changes for everybody. And so he sees other people differently now. He sees that young boy or young girl over there is probably living a very different life than he is. That hole in their jeans might be because that's how they bought it in the store, or it might be because they don't have enough money to patch it up or replace it. That kid over there might be overweight, not because they eat too much, but because the only food that they have access to is the high fatty foods you can get on like the WIC program or the free lunches at the school or something like that, rather than constant fresh fruits and vegetables and things like that. So it kind of awakens him a little bit to the reality that not everything is as what is going on in his little bubble. And you have a lot of people who are affluent because all they pay attention to is their bubble. And their parents don't teach them to pop their own bubble and welcome more of the world in around them. Like, oh, don't worry about those people over there. They're not one of us. And they immediately learn to segregate people away from them. That person's poor. Don't worry about them. Oh, well, why are they poor? Probably because there are probably many people that have to answer that question may do so in many different ways. They could go, well, we don't know the reason why. Maybe we should go ask them, actually go and engage the person in conversation, find out what's going on in their life, how they got there, turn it into a learning experience and a potential helping experience. Or they can dismiss it as, oh, they wanted to be like that. Like Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake if they're hungry. But they couldn't afford cake. It was one of the most expensive things you could buy. Which is why she got her head cut off. many politicians around here in the States aren't careful, there's going to be a revolution if they're not careful.
Yeah.
It'll take time, though, because there's a lot of people who, when something goes wrong, they have been falling in on themselves, their little bubbles, their happy place. And when you have these people who have lots of money, they can afford to make their happy place just about wherever they want and make things go away just by throwing money at it. And they don't understand why other people can't do it because they don't take the time to understand why.
True. It astounds me, the vitriol that comes out of these people, though. Like, just like one person says, hopefully this will rid us of the liberal population.
Well, to expand what Tech was saying is that we've become so accustomed in our time period here on planet Earth is that it's become a contest of demonization. Who can we demonize more? For those that are old enough, remember, it was the Irish people, then
yes.
The blacks, and then Hispanics, and anybody.
Go back further, it was the Jews.
Yeah, I mean, if you even want to take it even back, so basically. Yeah, the Chinese. So anything that was considered different or other, and it's something that really really came to the fore in the 1980s with Reagan, when he created out of whole cloth basically the whole notion of a welfare queen. I mean, that was basically a fabrication of his mind. There's no such thing as a welfare queen. I'm sorry, I am on welfare, I get Medicaid.
Yeah.
I have yet, in the years I've been on and off of it since my mid-30s, have yet to figure out how to strike it rich with $200 in food stamps a month. 200. Well, they don't even give you cash now if you're single without child, so I get no cash.
Yep.
And okay, I do get my medical taken care of, which I would be dead without it. So no, you're not getting rich on welfare, and your requirements to qualify for TANF are very strict. I wouldn't even qualify. I know people that have 2 or 3 children, married, one job between the two, they can't even qualify for TANF. So the whole notion of the welfare queen is bullshit. That's not to say that fraud does not occur. It does. It occurs in everything. But for food stamps alone, it's less than 1% nationwide. For cash assistance, it is, I think, 3 to 7% plus or minus 4. So the fraud is very low as far as with our basic social services. So but Reagan did a really good job of demonizing those of us that are less well off, and it's just carried forward.
I had a guy in that thread today because I said, the welfare queen thing is a myth. Oh, no, it's not. I know it happens, and I know people that do it, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, so maybe there's a handful of, no, it's rampant and generational. I'm like, okay, where's some data? Well, I know people. I'm like, that's not data, you twit. And he's like,
I mean, it can be, welfare can be generational, but it's generational because of economic and social forces that are already in play. I'll use where I live as an example. When the automotive industry started to tank, most of our factories here are powdered metals. In fact, we're actually known as the powdered metal factory of the world, or we were. I don't know if we still are considered it. Basically, our 5 biggest employers are all powdered metal factories. And basically what we do, we literally take powdered metals. It could be stainless, it could be bronze, brass, steel, whatever. And we, use press forming and then we sinter the metal to make it, to harden it, and yada yada, and we make mostly automotive parts. The factory I worked at, we did automotive plus recreational vehicles, tractors, 18-wheelers, etc. And when the automotive industry tanked, well, basically, we have a population of about 3,000 here in town. 2,800 of us were unemployed.
Yeah.
So pretty much the whole town went under. And you had people who, never would have applied for food stamps, or, some of them qualified for cash assistance depending on their family situation. They never, 20 years ago, never would even considered it.
Yeah.
But those that had the money, that were financially well off, or better off than we were, would demonize these people. I mean, it's like, it's not their fault that the automotive industry went belly up. I actually had, when I worked at the gas station, I actually had to people tell me, because I am gay, that I had no right to welfare, that I didn't deserve it. And I looked at him, I said, like your daughter with 3 children by 3 different men has a right to it?
Oh yeah, because it's always okay for them.
It's always blame somebody else. It's always the others. It's not their fault, it's the others. And that's something that I think Reagan really latched onto it, especially, we all hear the adage about him cutting mental health in California. Is much deeper than that. It's not just what Reagan did. There is much more to that issue than just that. But that's what he brought to the fore when he was president. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And now it's just like people that really have no business, at least here, where I live, who have no business commenting on somebody else's social economic standard, don't think anything of dishing someone.
Just quickly, just wanted to welcome Chris back to the show. Hello, all the way from Maryland. It's good to see you again.
It's great to be back, and I hope to be back more often.
Yay!
Yay!
And Joseph will be along. He's just woken up, so.
Yeah, it was Joseph that contacted me last night asking me to be back on. So I was quite disappointed to see he stood me up.
Yeah, you can yell at him when he gets here. He'll be here shortly. And Tech has put up an interesting comic here. So
it's from the Atheist Pig.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to have to read it for the podcast people.
Yeah, well, it's from the Atheist Pig, and I really like the web comics they do, because they point out the logical issues with mentalities that a lot of people have, especially people of religious backgrounds. So in this case, we have two characters. We have the Atheist Pig, of course. He's sitting in a bar, drinking what appears to be a bar, drinking a beer with another person who is wearing a Make America Great Again hat in red, much like the Trump hats. Okay, and the guy in the hat is saying, all I'm saying is I want poor people to stop taking handouts. And the pig is saying, well, let's raise the minimum wage so they don't have to take handouts. The guy's saying, no. Pig rebutes with, okay, well, how about we make college free or more affordable so they can get better jobs and not take handouts. And the guy's going, no, these people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And the pig goes, at this point, he's got a look on his face of like, really? Okay. So he says, okay, can we at least give them bootstraps so they can pull themselves up and stop taking handouts? And the guy's going, no. And the pig responds with, I'm beginning to doubt your sincerity and seeing people stop taking handouts. And it's true.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And you're right. It's they don't want to do anything to help anyone. So, because that's one of the things that's like, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I think it's not that they want people to be able to stop taking handouts. they want to be able to stop giving handouts.
Yes.
And there's a vast difference in where that leads you. If you want people to stop having to take handouts, then you look at say education, you look at minimum wages, you look at investing in industry, and other things to provide jobs and provide people with some to get on the first few steps of the ladder and improve their situation. If all you want to do is stop paying handouts, and you don't actually care about the people, then you've no interest in doing any of that.
No.
And that's where we're at.
And
Yeah,
this
and that may sound like I'm demonizing these people, but a lot of people in these who are saying this are are very successful themselves, and they seem to feel that they are embodiments of the American dream, that they've made it where they are 100% themselves, with no help from anyone else.
But
When in fact that's not actually accurate, and they've had a lot of support from society and from their connections, which they then deny to anyone else.
yeah.
And you hit the nail right there. If you deconstruct their supposed success story, take it back to the bare bones, they had a hell of a lot more help than they would even admit to. I mean, we all know the story with Donald Trump. He got what,
He got a small loan of $1 million.
Yeah, from his daddy. I mean,
the Bank of Trump.
I mean, you deconstruct these stories, the people that are leading the demonization, so to speak, have no qualms doing this. But I mean, the ones I've found, because I do know some people who have made it on their own, have become very, very successful on their own. They may have had a small step up, but everything else beyond that, they've repaid and repaid tenfold. And I find that these people that have had the help and who are willing to admit to the help are the ones that give back to society more so than I'll use Trump as the example, than somebody like Donald Trump. And people say, oh, well, he's not taking a salary. Well, so far he's gotten 2 paychecks and nobody knows where any of that money has gone because he isn't telling. Because he said he wasn't going to take a salary.
With him, that's basically financially irrelevant for him. I don't know what the US presidential salary is.
It's something like 200,000 a year or something like that.
If you've got a net worth in the billions, then that's money you leave behind the couch.
Absolutely.
See, here's the thing. He makes more money than that in a year by writing off profit losses through tax breaks and tax loopholes that he can use because the numbers have so many zeros after them. But regular people can't use because they don't invest that kind of money because they don't have it to begin with. If the taxes were more favorable to poor people or more favorable to the middle class rather than the rich, one, you'd start seeing a larger influx of rich people money back into the system, helping develop infrastructure and things like that, and less burden on the poor. Here's an example. With the Trump's tax returns that were released, I think it was like, what was it, 2005? Yeah. 2005. The taxes that he paid, if he had not been hit with the what I'd like to term the rich person tax, the one that somebody gets hit with when they make way over a certain amount of dinero, and not Robert either. And then he would have actually ended up paying, because of all those tax loopholes, less taxes than I would have in that year. Mm-hmm. And in 2005, I was making, let's see, it's 2017 now. Okay, so I was making roughly 40 39 to 40,000 a year, and I would have ended up paying more taxes than him.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, just to give you an idea, back in the 40s and 50s, taxes for people such as Trump, or we'll just say high wage earners over 100,000, they were paying 85% in taxes. They are now paying less than 23%.
Jeez.
So in the 70 plus odd years that have gone by, the taxes on the rich have gone down over 60%.
And Trump didn't even pay that 80% because he had so many write-offs that he was able to claim.
Well, I think that was the year that he had the $16 billion loss. That's why he didn't have to pay anything. He actually ended up paying the alternative minimum tax, and I don't remember exactly how that works. So he did end up paying taxes, but it was through that. But I'm not
But here's the thing: even though he had that close to $1 trillion loss, he personally profited off the loss insane amounts of money because of the proper tax loopholes.
Wow.
Yep.
But I guarantee you the people who work under him didn't.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's where the money comes
well, it's
from.
Just like that was one of the what's the word I'm looking for? Things against Warren Buffett. He even actually has people working for him that probably pay more taxes than he does. But he, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong on this, he actually is one of the ones leading for higher taxes on people of his wealth. Bill Gates is another one.
Bill Gates built his monetary empire from the ground up with programming code.
Yeah.
And and what he does with his billions is he reinvests in the things that he feels are important to people as a whole, like clean water in countries that don't have clean water systems, toilets, so people in countries where finding those kinds of facilities are hard to find, so that way they don't pollute the clean water they already have by using their local lake or stream as a dump.
And wasn't he doing a global campaign to help people stop smoking or something like that?
I don't know about the smoking, but I know he donates computers all over the place.
Yeah, doing anti-malaria campaigns. There's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is doing a huge amount of good in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he puts his money to use.
Mm.
Yeah, but the people who are griping, like I said, one of the people that I was talking to, they were saying, "Oh, well, it's not the government's responsibility to help people. That should be churches and individuals." I'm like, well, if churches and individuals were doing that, then there wouldn't be people asking for government assistance because it would be all taken care of, but they're not. And as Beth said, she was refused help at one point where someone in the same kind of situation as her went, who was straight, and they got help from the church. And you've all probably heard stories about some churches that they make people sit and listen to a sermon before they get food and crap like that. And that really pisses me the hell off because
a lot of your food banks that are, or not food banks, your food pantries that are run, like I do know in New Jersey where one of my friends is from, they have quite a few food shelters where you can go and get meals and stuff, and one of the requisites is you have to sit through a mini sermon, basically like 5-10 minutes, and then through prayer before they will even serve you.
Yeah, and that's
it's like and that is required. If you want, they won't give you food and let you take it home or whatever. You have to sit there, and they do that at every meal. Now they are well enough off that they are able to do, I think they do like 3 meals a day on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. They don't operate during the week, but in order to get the food, I mean, I can understand to a degree, but if you're doing this out of the, quote, kindness of your heart to help those that are in need, you shouldn't put a caveat on receiving such aid. And that's the problem with these church-born initiatives, is too many, not all of them, but too many are putting caveats. I mean, as I said, I went to Salvation Army. This was about 20 years ago, so I was still living in Buffalo. My gas bill got too high. And if you've ever lived in Buffalo, gas bills, in the type of apartment I was living in, it was 10-foot cathedral ceilings, ran $900 a month. That was your typical bill during. I mean, here I'm lucky if I hit 50.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
okay. But you know, I was in and out of work. As far because of my health issues, and we had gotten behind, and I went down to Salvation Army for help, and was basically refused because I'm a lesbian. And you know, when I told them the truth, I said, "Well, my partner and I, and her mother at the time was living with us, and yada yada yada." Well, I was outright denied. So a friend of mine went down, I think the next day. Very similar situation, except she was with somebody they were not living with her full time, and you know, he had his own place. So, but because she was straight, she got aid that day. She walked out of Salvation Army with a check.
yeah, and this is not just a local incident to
Oh no, it's
bacteria.
not local.
In,
This is worldwide. I know in
yeah,
Australia they have a huge problem with it.
And we know
yeah,
the Salvation Army is anti-gay as it is.
Yes.
Yeah. For example,
that's why I was laughing when
2004,
people.
yeah, there was an anti-discrimination bill coming in New York, and so the Salvation Army threatened to close all of their soup kitchens rather than deal with gay people.
Yeah.
Which would have affected tens of thousands of homeless people. And when you use people that are in the most dire need, it is ostensibly your mission to help for bigoted political maneuvering, then that's the point when I think everyone else should lose all respect for you.
Well, and that's a big problem with this idea that, well, you know, it shouldn't be the government, it should be churches doing that. Well, then you run into this whole, well, this church believes that, you know, it's against their religion to help a gay person. Well, this church believes it's against their religion to help a divorced person. And this church believes it's against their religion to help a woman who's had an abortion. Like, you run into all of that kind of bullshit. And they're already trying to do that with, you know, other things. And if they're privately giving aid, well, then every marginalized group is just going to be marginalized to death at that point. So why the hell would you want to put churches in charge of that when that's what they're going to end up doing? Well, it's our, you know, sincerely held belief that blah blah blah, and this is why we can't give food to that person. You know, that's what you're going to run into.
It's their sincerely held belief that someone else should pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. But they're going to use,
as far as I can make out,
they're going to use
that. Yeah, and the thing is, they also don't seem to recognize the flip side of this is that people in, say, living on the streets or otherwise in pretty bad straits, you know, struggling to make, aren't greatly contributing to the economy.
Yeah,
they're not producing a lot of wealth. They're not in gainful employment, doing something productive. On there, so, and they're also not paying into taxes. So if you get people out of these situations and get them moving up the ladder, they're then contributing and part of society.
Yeah, because nobody wants to be poor. Nobody wants to not be able to go and, buy a new coat or, even buy a car at some point. Like, nobody wants that. And that's the kind of thing that economies want. Economies start tanking when people stop buying. And so if no one can afford to buy, then no one's going to buy, and then everybody's poor. Like, it's in everyone's best interests to help each other out through these times. And these people just, oh, well, I'm fine. And a lot of people even said, when they were given the examples of countries like Denmark that give a living wage, like everyone gets a certain amount of money every month to pay for food and shelter and clothing so that they don't have to worry about those basic needs. And it's the happiest country on earth. You're right. Like, and people are, well, I don't care about Denmark because I'm an American. It's like, but they're happier than you. And one person's like, well, we didn't become the greatest nation in the world from, giving charity to everyone. I'm like, you're not the greatest nation in the world. Me.
You kind of hit on a point. When I first got sick back in '95, when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I ended up having to give up my job. I could no longer work, and it was the shittiest feeling because everything is based on how much money you have. And I think for me, it was kind of a wake-up call because, most people aren't aware that I come from money. Okay? Money was never an issue for me until 1988 when the market crashed. So for me, I always had money. I always had cash in my wallet, yada, yada, yada. But when I got sick and realized I couldn't work, and I didn't work for about 3.5 years. I wasn't stable enough to, but it was the worst feeling because people would ask me to go out to the bar. This is when I was still drinking, and I was like, well, I can't. I don't have the money to. And there were, a couple of my friends would offer to pay, and sometimes I would take them up on it. Most of the times I wouldn't because when I was a drinker, I really didn't want somebody paying for my habit. But as time went on, people started pulling away because I never, quote, had the money to do anything. Well, for me, everything revolved around paying my rent and paying my bills. And, like Chris was saying, I mean, if you take that, I'll use incentive away, people aren't going to spend the money. The less people that spend the money, it's one big rotating ball. You have people being productive, and even when I moved back to PA 16 years ago, it was like I was in no shape to work. I was pretty sick, and one of my friends who is better, was financially well off and stuff, would have me go down to her salon and do stuff there. And she would drop me a 20 for what I did there, or she'd have me come up to her house. And I had asked her about 2 or 3 years ago, why she did that. She goes, because you needed to feel like you were being productive.
Mm.
And she goes, that's why. And I said, where'd you get that notion? And then it dawned on me, she's fucking from Norway. They're a socialist country. And that's just, she goes, she'll hire people off the street that she sees that might have the odd hole in their pants, and have them come up and clean her house, even though her house doesn't need cleaning. But that's the it's a totally different mentality than what we have here in this country.
Yeah. Well, and
I think you've also hit on another major point there, Beth, is the health costs and how easy it is to become sort of socially and politically disengaged when you don't have the resources to travel to events, you don't have the resources to engage, go out and engage with other people, and that in itself can have serious both physical and mental health consequences.
Well, for me,
making the situation worse.
Yeah. I'm dealing with that now. I mean, since my stroke 2 years ago, my doctors, my specialists that I'm supposed to be seeing, are in Dubois, which is by car an hour to hour 10-minute drive from where I live. Now, I don't drive. Even if I could, I wouldn't be able to, because even though I have new glasses and all that fun stuff, I still have dizzy spells and my eyes still do strange things, which is pretty much from my stroke. So I wouldn't have been able to drive anyways. But although I have one friend who is more than willing to cart me everywhere I have to go, she has her own family. Okay,
Yeah.
she has 6 kids. She has 3 grandkids. She's now actually a grandmama mom to one of them. It's like she can't be carting me to all these doctor's appointments. I mean, one doctor's appointment's 5 hours out of the day, an hour traveling, an hour, say 3 hours both ways, plus lunch, and then doctors, you never get in on time, except for my eye doctor. He was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I finally said to the one doctor, 2 of them were in the same building. I said, you guys got to schedule my appointments on the same day. I said, I cannot keep driving to Dubois every other day. And finally, it just got to the point where it was just too much for my friend, because she was also dealing with a brain tumor. And I said, this is my last appointment. I have no way here. And going back to private organizations, this is necessarily a religious one, but they wanted more information, financial information from me. It's our bus company, it's CATA for those in BA. They wanted their application form was 8 pages long. They wanted more financial information from me than the fucking welfare office did. And I said, all you need to know is I'm on Medicaid. That should tell you right there that I make really little. It's like it's impossible for 4 people to get to even better themselves, because there's roadblocks everywhere.
Bonjour, mon ami.
Bonjour, comment allez-vous? J'espère que tout le monde va bien.
Yeah. Chris was annoyed that he thought you stood him up for a few minutes.
No, I always get daylight savings time the wrong way around.
You thought you had
Sprint forward, fall back.
You thought he had an extra hour when he was down an hour. That's unfortunate, but that's okay.
Sorry about that.
That's
okay. So
sorry, A.
He's gonna be extra A because he has craft dinner to eat now.
Yeah, that brought back flashbacks. I mean,
I bet.
Wow.
So we've been talking about the attitude, largely American, but not exclusive to American, as why, we don't need to help any poor people because you poor people kind of thing. So I got into a debate with a bunch of right-wing nut jobs earlier today about this, and it kind of made me do that. I don't understand. Not just healthcare, but like just not helping with, the idea that poor people take too many handouts and they belong to an entitlement culture kind of thing. And I'm like, how is that entitlement to be like, I lost my job and I'm really trying to get a job, and I'd rather not starve while I'm trying to get a job. Like, that's not entitlement. That's, hey, can I have a hand up until I get sorted out? It's this
AKA, you're talking about people who like the idea of having the right to earn a profit from their fellow human while pretending their fellow human doesn't exist.
Yeah, that kind of mentality. And that, I think that plays into it too, because it's like, oh, well, if that person is getting, quote, something for nothing, which is hardly ever the case, but if they're getting something for nothing, then someone else isn't profiting off them. I think there is some of that involved too. And
I
it's
think
Yeah, that's a
it's
good
it's all of
observation.
that. It's a lack of compassion, lack of.
oh,
I
that's
And I
hesitate to use
think some of its
empathy.
hierarchy too is even the poorest of the poor still want to be better than somebody else.
well,
You know,
yeah.
So they'll trample people who are, worse off than they are.
Yeah, because they have to fight for scraps.
Hmm
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
yeah. Don't say that. It might give certain people ideas.
Or
And
it
it's
might
easier not to
trigger
care.
you because even the poorest of the poor is susceptible to that too.
Well, and if you can other people
Yeah, they are.
in
I know some people that are very cutthroat, but I just find it really bizarre because when my one ex and I were together, we didn't have a shitload of money, but we did okay. We had ups and downs, but we started doing a thing at Christmas time where we'd find a family or an individual or whatnot, and basically we'd go out, get a Christmas tree and decorations and Christmas presents and Christmas Day food, and anonymously take it to them, leave it on their doorstep and stuff like that. Well, I kind of miss doing that since I've been single for a while now, and it's like, so this past year, even though I really can't afford it, one of the guys that I worked with actually was a minister at one of the churches I have a little bit of respect for. Very little. It's just I happened to be friends with the original minister, and he was a really cool guy. He did a lot for poor families in the town and stuff, and he helped me when I needed help and yada yada yada. So I was like, well, I didn't want to donate to the food bank because our food bank here is kind of weird. I don't really like how it operates, but they do the best they can considering. So I basically had, through the course of 4 or 5 months, collected odd food. When I shopped, I would get like a couple extra things and throw it in this box. And one of my friends, after I did this, one of my friends had heard about it, and they're like, okay, you don't make any money as it is. How the hell did you do that? And I was like, because there's people that are worse off than I am, and they need just as much help as I do. I said, you know that $20 you lent me like 2 weeks ago? That's where it went. And they're like, seriously? I said, yeah, about $15 of it. And they're like,
so here's another thing that's always baffled me, and Bridget, maybe you can have some insight into this, because some of the people that contribute, I think, the most to society are soldiers, and yet people are rabidly like, oh, cut funding for this, that. Even in Canada, we're bad for cutting funding to veterans. So how do people justify that kind of crap? Because if anybody deserves help, it's the people that have literally offered up their lives for others.
Well, again, it goes back to othering and mentality. It's not their kids that are going over there. And a lot of people go into the military because that's the only option open to them because they are poor and they can't get jobs. And that
Or an
it's the only job
education.
they can get. And they're and these people are seen as cannon fodder.
Wow. Because the stories of, like, even here, a few weeks ago, there was a story I saw where no, sorry, it wasn't here. It was an American story where a bunch of people had gone to VA hospital waiting rooms and like filmed some of the people that were there. And I mean, there were people like laying on the floor and trying to sleep in the chairs because no one was seeing them, and just the way they were being treated, it just seems ridiculous to me. And it baffles my mind. Maybe because I like people.
Because most people, whoever made that documentary are doing the right thing, because most people today seem to live in a comfort bubble. Anything outside of it, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
That's
Well, a
true.
lot of people don't realize, especially with the military, that of our active military personnel, 35% of them receive food stamps.
Yeah,
So for every 100 people, 35 of them get food stamps. Now let that sink in a minute.
that's ridiculous.
I
And see,
mean,
this is
it's
where
crazy.
the idea that, oh, we have to profit all the time becomes a problem, because no one who has a full-time job should be needing food stamps, and yet it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, it's like a
it's because
statistic.
mhm.
Go ahead, Deb.
I was gonna say it's because the idea of turning a profit has become more important than providing a living wage to anyone. I mean, even I remember when I was working at the call center over the span of even 5 years, the attempt to get us to do more and more things for less and less was all the time, like noticeably over as little as a couple of years. And that was, well, we have to make more money, so you need to do more things for either the
You have
same.
to maintain profit margins.
Yeah, and like, it's become more important than your employees being able to pay rent, and then if you, let's say you have car problems and you don't have the money to fix your car and you're late for work or you miss, well, that's your problem. You figure that out. We don't need to worry, you have to get here no matter what.
I'd like to see the people who actually benefit from these sort of wars to cover a lot of the or if not all of the healthcare for these are the people who owe the most. I mean, like, just referring to the Iraq War. Well, no matter how you paint it, ExxonMobil was there like months after the war's quote unquote end, pumping away again, just like back in 1973.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fact. They're there. They're pumping again. And they were kicked out for between 1973 and in the Second Iraq War. So they're profiting.
Yeah.
But nobody's looking there.
Just to go back to something you were saying, Deb, as far as like cost of living here in Pennsylvania, and in order for a person working full time to afford a 2-bedroom home, so a father, mother, and we'll say 1.3 children, they would have to hold 2.5 jobs in order to. Okay, in California, for a 1-bedroom, a single person would have to have 3.7 jobs, full time, 40 hours a week, just for subsistence living.
Minimum wage jobs.
No, not minimum wage. Well, yeah, probably that's probably what they figured it out as. But just to pay your basics, nothing extra, no luxury items, no cell phones, no cable TV, just subsistence living. You would have to have 3.5 jobs in California.
Can you imagine if we were still living in nature, okay, without all the comforts of today? How much work would it take to build your own home, to have a place to live?
A lot of damn work. I mean, even
no, but do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't. It all depends where we live. I mean, there are sort of hunter-gatherer groups still in the warmer parts of the world that, because their gathering food is so easy, and a little bit of hunting now and then, on there, they spend most of their time just chilling out.
Yeah. So if you take
they probably work less they probably work less hours than I do.
If it takes a minimum of effort to to sustain yourself, even in nature, and then you take a situation where you have to work 3 jobs to pay the rent every month. I mean, there's something super wrong there. We're worse off than we were in nature.
Well, we
Yeah,
are,
I mean,
because look what, conservatives always like to bitch about, the family's being destroyed, blah, blah, blah. What's destroying any semblance of any family is people who have to work 80 hours a week or some other insane number, or have 2 and 3 jobs and never see their kids or never see their spouses, or they're so tired when they get home for a weekend that they can't do anything. They can't have a hobby. They can't, have much rec time because they either can't afford it still, or
The
they're
people exploiting them, they don't give a shit about that.
I know, but in the long run, it's going to be detrimental to them too, because eventually there's going to come a point where nobody can sustain an economy. Like I see that will happen, because
it's a downward spiral.
It is.
Yeah, I mean,
it's funny when we look at the end of Rome, that was like slavery. Well, because they, their thing depended on their economy depended on slavery, and for me, it's like cognitive dissonance on cognitive dissonance on cognitive dissonance. I mean, if you go back to slavery days, like we used to own slaves, and a slave owner would have to provide a minimum of sustenance for their slaves. I mean, like, shitty food and a shitty house, at least, so they could live. And today you've got people working a wage that is too low for shitty food and a shitty house. I mean, but we just don't call it slavery.
Yeah, so to give the contrasting situation to what Beth was talking about in California. So I work, I'm on not much above minimum wage over here, making about £18,000 a year. So that'll pay my rent and bills, allow me to slowly put away a little bit each month towards, savings, whatever. And I can afford to go out as long as I'm careful, socially, and eat well, buy clothes, etc. And I'm not under any sort of massive, financial strain at the moment. And I've made do with a little bit less in the past, but but it means that I'm not apart from a couple of brief periods of unemployment, it means I've never needed to rely on government assistance, or I've never needed to visit a food bank or go to a charity for help. And it's giving me, the feeling of doing something productive and beneficial with my time.
Yeah. Well, it's a very frustrating feeling because, currently I only work part-time, and it's partly by choice, due to, obviously, my stroke. I couldn't hold a full-time job even if I wanted to, but when I decided, I used to work 2 jobs. I worked a full-time and a part-time, and I gave up my full-time job just because I just couldn't physically do it anymore. I'd always worked 2 or 3 jobs since I was 18, and I finally decided. So, my decision to cut my hours, so to speak, and live very minimally was my decision. I'm living a little bit below what I'm comfortable at. Money is an issue for me, and it will be until something breaks. But for me, it was a choice that I made initially. The situation I am now is not something I had planned on. But there are some of us that can do that. I live very minimal. I don't have anything fancy. I don't even pay for internet. I bleed off of the free Wi-Fi around me. And the only thing I really own of any value is my computer. and I bought that. It's going on almost 9 years now. But as far as everything else, I mean, Deb, you've seen in my apartment, I have 2 chairs.
Yeah.
It's like, but to be able to do that day in and day out when it's not something you're used to. For me, it was a conscious decision. I knew what I was getting myself into, although it went a little further south than I had planned on. Is one thing, but when you're thrown into that day in and day out, it grinds at you, and I think it was either Joseph or Chris was saying it causes depression. I know when I was out of work, when I couldn't work,
And it's
I
also
had
just living in crappy conditions,
Yeah.
eating crappy food, and working
No reward.
60, 80 hours a
yeah,
week.
exactly. There's
You can do it when you're 18.
Yeah.
If you've
You
got
can
good
do it
health,
when you're
and
52,
early
trust
20s,
me.
but yeah, there comes a point in your life where that just takes more and more of a toll on your physical health.
Yeah.
Your subconscious doesn't. Your subconscious doesn't lie to you, because I mean, if you're uncomfortable, you can try to rationalize that all you want, but your subconscious knows when you're not healthy, when you're not eating right, when you're not getting any feedback for all the work you're doing, or anything at all for all the work you're doing, and that's what causes depression.
Well, I think too, like, I should make some caveats. For food, if I had to, in a dire emergency, I'm very good with food. I was a chef for years, so I can live off of $25 a week food if I had to. Granted, it would not be the most ideal food, and being that I am diabetic, it would be really, really difficult. But imagine having to do that at 70 years old.
Yeah.
Being a senior. Now, there's people, like, when I first got sick 2 years ago, I was just blown away by the hoops I had to jump through just to get help. Thankfully, cognitively, I was not affected. You guys all know that. But could you imagine somebody in a worse situation than I was, having to go through the same bullshit that I did just to get help? I mean, that's what kills me. And I've been really lucky. I've had some really good people here in town that have...
Imagine somebody that doesn't have any education either. I mean,
Exactly.
because you have the mental capacity to deal with it, but somebody with less.
See, I don't have to imagine that, because I've already saw the news broadcast where a lady went around with a camera crew out into the Midwest of the United States, went to find people who were on welfare, who needed every kind of social bailout whatsoever, just so they could live a life of poverty. Okay?
Yeah.
Hear that, listeners. They had to use everything possible just to live a life of poverty. Okay?
I'm not even at poverty level.
Well, hold on. When they asked them who they typically voted for, the majority of them all said Republicans. And when they said, well, the Republicans, why do you vote Republican? Well, because they need to get rid of this and they need to get rid of that. And they started naming all the things that they used so that they could just live. And then when they told them, you get rid of that stuff, you're not going to have the things that you want. They said, oh, well, one of, like you were guys saying, the answers were, it's not going to affect me, or they'll think of something. And when they were approached with, well, these politicians keep screwing things up, Republican, why don't you vote Democrat? And the response was, because they'll eventually get it right. They are so... their minds have been warped to the point there's no reaching them.
There's no warping when it's not even developed. There's just the ability to make value judgments independently is just, that's missing.
Yeah.
I'd say, following on from Jack, I saw that as well. And a lot of this came down to the the American dream of like the self-made success on there, and
It's a dream of a dream at this point.
yeah, the dream of the dream, and it's very much like karma, in that if you're in a bad situation in your life, it's something to be ashamed of. It's something to feel guilty about, because obviously, if you've not made it, it's because you've not worked hard enough. You're not good enough. If you need help, it's something to be ashamed of, and it's not. We all need help at some point in our lives.
And the thing
But
is,
because that was such a point of the American dream, was such a point of pride for these people, then they wanted to vote for the people that they saw as like successfully fulfilling that dream, even though it was going to be materially.
Even though they were voting for liars. Because you had these people who were claiming, "Oh, vote for me," because I came from a family that was poor, and their definition of poor was their family didn't make $20 million a year; they only made $5 million.
Or that they had to go to public school and not private school. Yeah,
but the public school that they went to was in an area where the public school got an insane amount of funding from the taxpayers there, so they were afforded everything that your average public school couldn't really afford.
But they're still poor because it
was public. Yeah, exactly.
Public.
In short, everybody preaching the bootstrap mantra, they don't know what it's like to actually pull themselves up by the bootstrap. I mean, if it's not them, it's their parents' money.
I've been in a situation where
you can't pull yourself up.
Yeah, you got to have the bootstrap, exactly.
Yeah, I was in a situation where I was bedridden for 2 weeks due to illness, and I had to get out of bed in week 3 and go to work, even though I wasn't better yet. Because if I didn't, I would have lost where I was living at the time.
Exactly.
I was in the same situation. I had a broken back, and I ended up working for Google.
Well,
the only thing I could do while I'm bedridden.
An appendectomy, with the big cut, and was back at work 4 days later because I would have lost my job.
Yeah. Oh, I remember trying to work, with bronchitis, showing up and, at the time I worked for an antique store, and part of the things that I sometimes had to do is help move furniture. And I'm like virtually doubled over, coughing out whatever left of a lung I had. And they're like, "Why are you here?" I'm like, "Because you don't pay me if I don't come here. So that's why I'm here."
Well, and the other thing is, this is what we're going. We had a brief respite with the ACA, where, but now it's going to be we're going back into people going to work sick. Mm-hmm. I went back to work 3 days after my second stroke. I had gotten out of the hospital on Sunday, and I was back to work on Tuesday. I had no choice.
That's because companies don't care.
Well, my company did care, but like Dub, I didn't work. I didn't get paid. If I didn't get paid, how the fuck was I going to pay my rent? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry,
to have a personnel department.
Okay,
they have
so yeah, I'm just getting over a spate of bronchitis that's been messing with me for about the last month, and I've had a few days off work here because I'm on a salaried position. That doesn't affect my paycheck at the month. It's unexpected, like a number of days sick or whatever are factored into the contract on there, and it's in many ways it's better.
Are yours factored in as sick days or just part of your general leave? Because I'm a contractor, And mine are, I don't have any specific sick days. Mine are factored in as
Right.
general leave. So if I don't have enough general leave get saved up and I get sick, doesn't
Right.
matter that I'm salary. I get docked.
The way it works here is if you need to take like a small number of days off sick, say 3 or 4 days, then it's just covered in as part of your salary and it's not affected. If you need to go on longer term sickness, then you'll go onto a reduced rate. And there is a government program called statutory sick leave. And even when I was working about 10 years ago, I was working for 40, 50 hours a week behind a bar on a 0 hours contract. And I went out one night and on my way home, tripped over something and smashed my ankle up. I was off work for 5 months, but even being on, I'd say the 0 hours like casual bar work, then I qualified for statutory sick leave.
Right.
It wasn't a lot, but what it let me
like
do
our
is
disability.
Mhm.
yeah, and it's paid through combination of the government and the employer.
Yeah.
On there, so it wasn't a lot, but what it did while I was staying with family until I could walk again, it let me pay the rent on my apartment up here, so I didn't have to like let that go, move all my stuff, and then like find another place when I came back.
Yeah.
So and it let me contribute a little bit towards like food, while I was staying with my mum. And with a little bit of savings that got me through. Without that, or without the family support, I would have been in fairly serious trouble.
Yeah, see, that's like our short-term disability here in the States. We also have a long-term disability, which is usually covered by your employer, but that's a benefit. It's not a guarantee. I worked at one company that offered it and one that didn't. And if you get
up here, we've got you're legally entitled to 10 sick days a year, but they don't have to be paid. So generally, if you're on a salary position, your company will choose to pay for some or all. So I work for one company where they would pay for all 10 sick days. And I work for another company where they would pay 5 out of the 10 sick days.
Yeah, see, that's all negotiation, and usually you find that in a lot of your union jobs.
I find it odd that the employer would even pay sick leave. I mean, isn't that something a little more,
I mean,
usually
government.
you'll find that in management, your middle management, upper management.
Yeah, I think that should be part of healthcare.
Oh yeah,
I think
I mean,
too.
And
another way of looking at
why
it-
would the employer,
Okay.
I mean, even
Well,
logically speaking, why would the employer pay
The
somebody sick
idea
leave?
is
Okay,
that
I'm just going to cover that,
Yeah.
Joseph. So in my current job, the work I do is very detailed work with processing data. And so it is better for the company that to in that kind of work that is if I'm ill, it's better that I take the day off rather than force myself to come in and fuck up.
Okay.
And previously I've worked in the food industry, and again, if I've got an illness on there, then you don't want like sick people around people's food.
Oh, here they don't
So that-
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you're like because with the level of health inspections and stuff you get over here.
But that's because they
Then
value
close a
you
bit
as an employee.
Yeah.
I
And
work at a
that's where the
hospital.
calculation should be, actually. Because
I
I
work
mean,
at a hospital. You would think they would not want you sick at a hospital where you can infect other patients. But I was sick one time. I've been there 6 months. and that one time got me written up.
What?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If I
Wow.
get written up again, they can fire me.
Who was it said that we're
Welcome
basically
to
slaves?
America, where humanity is not personal.
You're dispensable.
Business.
Because, like I
Yeah.
say, in Canada, you are entitled to 10 days of sick leave. Now, there's rules around that. And like I say, they don't have to pay you, but they cannot fire you at all or discipline you for those
See,
10
you don't have the lawyers that America has, where they have made sure that certain states, like for example, I used to work retail in the state of Virginia. And one of the neat little things about Virginia is that you or your employer, anytime, for absolutely zero reasons, can terminate your employment. So you
Yeah.
could
Right to
be
work.
a long-standing employee of 15, 20 years, didn't miss a single day of work. You're out sick, get pissed off a manager, boom, you're out the doorstep, your ass is handed to you, you're out of job.
You can't do that here. And so those 10 days, like for instance, now several
That's an open
companies,
door to bigotry too.
well, yeah,
Yep.
several
Oh,
companies,
well,
Yeah, if you got the wrong color skin.
If you
Religion.
if you took a quote sick day, but you didn't call them and say, yes, I'm sick every day, then you could be fired because you're not telling them that you're sick and that you require the sick day. The last company I worked for, if you had more than 2 consecutive sick days, you had to go and get a doctor's note stating that you were well enough to return to work.
Yep.
So that's another thing which drove me crazy. Because,
More than 2 days.
so
over
2
here it's if you're off for more than a week, 7 days, then you can be asked for a sickness note.
We'll see.
Medical release
from a doctor.
Yeah. So
But I mean, after 2 days, that to me that makes zero sense because
when I had bronchitis and it's like, okay, I'm like barely getting out of bed, but I don't need a doctor's attention because it's, I know what it is, or if it's a bad cold or whatever, I know what it is, and I know I don't need to see a doctor. But the company, and when I became a supervisor, it was explained to me that in order to protect themselves legally, they had that policy, and now I think it is a bit of you're proving that you're legitimately sick, but they were saying that no, we want proof that you're well enough to work.
Well, yeah, there is a legal. I know, and it's probably very similar in Canada. Here is if you're sick enough that you're going to miss 2 or 3 days in a row, they want a release from your doctor stating that you are safe to come back to work. That way, from a legal standpoint, if something were to happen, let's say you had a bronchitis and it caused an asthma attack, and the asthma attack killed you.
Yeah.
Asthma can do it. It protects them liability-wise. Most companies like that, and that's one of the things I fought for around here, is that the companies were asking for doctor's notes. Well, you can't ask for a doctor's note. All you can ask for, and this was one of my HR classes that I had to take for my one job, basically said you can ask for a release stating that, from a doctor stating they are healthy or well enough to return to work. That releases them from any legal liability if something were to happen.
That makes sense.
Then it goes into here we have workers' compensation. It gets a little bit more sticky with workers' comp because technically if let's say I had a heart attack at work, everything should be by and large covered under workers' comp. But because I have a history of heart trouble, I've had 2 heart attacks prior, they can say, well, you've had issues before, we don't have to cover any of this. It gets into, especially here in the States, now I don't know about Canada or the UK, it gets into a really sticky legal wicket when, as far as who pays for what. And by taking, and this is why I think, having the type of insurance we do here in the States compared to what you guys have in the UK and in Canada is so bullshit. It boils down to which insurance company is going to pay for your bills.
Yeah.
Well, if you had single payer, it's going to be the same one. It's going to be the government. Period. It's all legal bullshit. It's basically who
I'd love
can
to see
make
a
the
mix
most.
of, because you've got that because of the law already being, the system already being bullshit. They have to protect themselves from the bullshit, so they have to invent. But I
Yeah,
think an
they
optimal
invent more.
system would be a mix of like everything we're talking about, like to have the basic healthcare covered by the government, and have like, which every taxpayer, like even me as a taxpayer, I'd be willing to pay for my fellow humans,
Absolutely.
so that they can be actually remain a part of the workforce, like alive, like a customer or whatever. But then have on top of that, have the employer, calculate the actual loss or and gain of any situation. How much is this
You're talking about a
employee of
scenario
value
where the
to me,
employer
where
and the company actually care about the people.
dude. Yeah.
Yes.
So on top of that, have the employer calculate their own cost and profit.
All right. Let me give you a little hint of companies of what they think people should have in terms of healthcare, besides them trying to wash their hands of it. When I started working at my previous company, before I worked the job I did now, I was paying roughly $300 a month to cover me and my son. Our total deductible, meaning stuff we had to pay out of pocket before the insurance kicked in, was roughly about $1,000. Okay, for a year. So at the end of year's end, that $1,000 reset. I'm spending $300. By the time I left that company, I was paying close to $400 a month, and my deductible was $3,000 for me, $3,000 for my son, no longer combined. Okay, they were separate. That did not include, unlike the first one version did, it did not include medications either, so the medications did not count towards that deductible. And it reset at the end of the year. It qualified for an HSA card, which is what Trump wants. Okay, Trump wants, okay, you want affordable care. Here you go. Here's a plan that only costs you $200 a month to cover you and your kids. Yes, but those $200 plans tend to have deductibles like what mine was, which is $3,000 a person. And you can't put money on an HSA card to help pay for those deductibles if you don't have the money in the first goddamn place. The companies don't care because it's cheap for them. Yeah. And that's the ultimate thing. Like I said before, companies used to have personnel departments, not anymore. Now they have human resources. And those words are very, very important. A personnel department was designed to take care of the people. The company saw them. They were personal. Human resources, it's a resource. We can get rid of resources. We can get new resources. We got resources all over the place. It's going to be huge.
Yeah. But this is the problem when you see everything as just a potential for profit. Like if everything, like, your medical is run like a business, and business is seen as supreme, like, and it kind of ties into the idea of a business being able to discriminate however they want and all of that, because it's seen as, anything that can protect a business is more important than protecting a person. And I just, I can't fathom.
Yeah, because the business, and this goes through because only businesses have enough money to have any influence on the government
Yeah.
to put this kind of thing through. So the people, well, they're not going to be, if they can't push for their rights, then, you know, they're
See,
not going to have
Canada's got
any.
a nice little thing going on where they limit maximum contributions to $1,000 per household.
What was that, Bridget?
Oh, when I was living up in Indianapolis, there was a massive outbreak of food poisoning. One of the employees that worked at Olive Garden had norovirus. I don't know if you know what that is or not, but it's highly contagious. It's the
Yes.
diarrhea and sickness that people get on cruise ships.
Yeah.
It runs through schools bad enough that they have to close schools, but an employee had to come to work and had norovirus, and next thing you know, there are 250 people sick that ate at Olive Garden from that one person.
And what people don't realize, and this is something I learned when I became a supervisor, because there were if people come to work sick, it actually costs a company more money than if they don't come to work as long as they're sick.
Yeah.
And
I was making that point earlier.
they're less productive, and they're potentially giving their illness to other employees who then are also going to need sick days.
Yeah.
And it's,
Well, we had that problem at one of the plants, and I finally put my foot down because I was sick of getting sick. And we would have one guy that would come in. He would have a horrid upper respiratory, and there was like 12 or 15 of us on second shift, and we'd all end up sick within a week. And I finally said, and it would all just keep going around all year. We'd all be sick, like 4 or 5 times. And I was like, I don't get sick that often. It's like, I'll get a cold in the spring and in the fall, and that's about it.
yeah.
I haven't had the flu, God, 20, 25 years. I mean, the actual flu, like what you had, not the sniffles and a high fever. That's a cold.
Like,
But
the land you in the hospital variety.
Yeah, the deadly kind that I get the shot for every year. But it's like, I finally said, listen, you gotta tell him not to come to work sick. I said, I am sick of getting sick.
Yeah.
They changed what you can take 3 days off, but you're still gonna get written out. It was just like, seriously, you're gonna write us up for being sick for now? It's like they just didn't get it.
I have never worked for a company that would ever write you up for being legitimately sick. Now,
Come work in the U.S.
No, thank you.
Seriously, come work in the U.S. Go to work at McDonald's or Burger King or Staples or Best Buy, and wait about 3-4 months. Best Buy is great on this one, and then call into work sick and tell them you're going to be out for a couple days, and just record the reaction, and then come back and see me, and we'll commiserate.
That's okay. I believe you.
Now there are some companies
No
that are
thanks.
really good about if you're sick, but for the most case, it's the Best Buy scenario.
So I wanted to come back to a comment. Actually, Trippin, who's over in the chat there, he had a comment not really related to the sick day thing, but he had been watching a lady on Fox. Dude, don't watch Fox.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention to your enemies.
I know. I don't have cable. I don't ever see Fox. But anyway, he said she was bitching about having to fund PBS and Sesame Street, and said that people can use Netflix, saying like 65% of people in welfare had cable or a dish, and if need be, they can rent movies from their library. And he says, anybody see a library in a low-income rural area lately?
I live right next to one.
I live in Southern Maryland. There are 2 libraries. One is 15 minutes away from me. They just opened it up like last year. It's got a couple books. And then the other one is an hour and a half away from me towards D.C. and it's this really tiny building.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Libraries are losing a lot of funding too. So
They are. And so this woman's thing is, well, they don't need to have cable or Netflix or any of that. They can just go get free stuff at the library. Okay.
Bootstraps. Excuse me.
Yeah, and like even the library here, I've been. Well, I haven't been in a few years now, but I did initially when I found out that they had a library of DVDs and things that you could take out. It's not that big, and I live in a city of 250,000 people, and their selection. I mean, they have loads and loads of books. So I mean, okay, fine, you could read all the time, but they don't probably want that because then people would learn things. But anyway, the DVD library that they had was not that extensive. I mean, I think I picked everything that I was remotely interested in within, a couple of weeks. And that was, I think you were allowed to take out 4 or 6 at a time, something like that. So it wasn't like you could take 10 at a time and do a week's binge or something, I'd gone through everything I was even remotely interested in. So then you're stuck with, okay, so now I'm going to watch things that I really don't have an interest in or that I don't want to see just because that's all like it's ridiculous. And some of the memes coming around when the Trump Care crap was released was like, oh, you need chemo and you need treatment. Guess who better give up their Netflix subscription? Like that's gonna help.
Yeah, that $15 a month is really gonna pay for chemo.
Exactly.
Won't even pay for a drop.
Nope.
Well, and that's the thing. I think part of it is a lot of these people that are bitching along that line are so removed from reality that they have absolutely no clue what an illness,
No.
how it can devastate a family. I mean, if your sole breadwinner, if your wife or your husband or whoever gets sick to the point where it has to go through chemo, God forbid. Not only are you losing their income, you're losing their ability to help in the household. So you've essentially become a one-parent household for your children. I mean, these people have no concept what it's like. They've never had anything like that happen. I learned at a very young age what a catastrophic illness can do. My mother had cancer when I was 13. I was basically for 2 years raised by my aunt. And I mean, if my dad did not have the job that he had at the time, I don't know what we would have done. But can you imagine somebody making less than my father at the time? This was back in the 70s. I mean, I had a friend here in town who ended up with brain cancer. Thankfully, her kids were late teens, so as far as the emotional toll of weaker finances, it didn't affect them as much because they actually had their own jobs by then. But it really affected their style of living. They had to cut back on things that they should not have had to cut back on. It's just, it's like Joseph said, and I think Chris or Tech said, they're living in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I mean, go ahead,
I'll tell you something. I've worked in insurance, for, since 1997, and talking about deductibles. And Tech was saying that he had a $3,000 one and a $3,000 for his kid. I have seen deductibles as high as $28,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You remember you guys were scoffing at what I was paying?
Who is scoffing?
Well,
Heretic Woman was.
I was just amazed by what
You were
they.
incredulous.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
28,000.
No.
I was,
Wow.
Anyway,
I'm using the wrong words.
yeah.
I flabbergasted you. How about that?
There we go. Yes.
Gave you pause.
By the way, Trippin says that the closest library to him is 45 minutes away.
I live right next to one.
And
I have to give our library credit though for as little as, well, it's not really little, but for as small as it is, it does a pretty good job for a small town. So I have to give the people that run it really big credit for that. But I grew up with the Buffalo Library, which was like 3 floors in a whole city block.
The thing is, too, if the library is 45 minutes away by vehicle,
Yeah,
and
how are they going to get there?
Yeah.
you're poor, and if it's rural, it's not like you can hop on the city bus and go.
And soon with global warming, it's going to be, how far is it to swim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found the meme I was looking for. It says offering a poor person a health savings account is like offering a starving person a cookbook.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that's what people don't understand with health savings account. Unless you make $250,000 a year or more, you cannot afford a health savings account because that $3,000 that you stuck in it last year, when that's gone, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah.
If you do not have disposable income now, you're not going to have it with a health savings account. So every penny you put in, once those pennies are gone, that's it. And they will drop you midstream. So if you're halfway through your chemo, guess what? You just had your last chemo.
Yep.
They don't give a crap.
And if you think that many of the hospitals will just go, oh, well, we're not getting paid. We're going to do it anyway, just, so we can save a human life because your life is that important to us. You're
there won't be any hospitals left.
No.
They got Medicaid. And that's the thing. That's the thing. People don't really. Go ahead.
Yeah, insurance. It just the total irony of it is that insurance companies, they only make money off of you when you're healthy. So if you get sick, well, fuck you. You're not worth anything to us anymore.
I've always thought of insurance as a giant scam anyway, because when you actually want to make a claim, whether it's health insurance or car insurance or homeowners insurance or what have you, they will make up any excuse that they could possibly think of to not pay you. Like, it's ridiculous. Like when what was it?
Well, I know I will never use Progressive Insurance again because there was a car accident where the guy who hit me was completely at fault, and there was even a witness who was willing to testify. Yeah. And my insurance company, who was supposed to deal with the other guy's insurance company on my behalf and to kind of make it favorable for both my insurance and I, said, yeah, you can deal with them, and hung up on me. And I had to deal with the asshole's insurance company. And they tried to do everything they could to get out of paying me. As it was, what I should have done was, I'll tell you, if this ever happens again in my life, I'm smarter now and wiser now. I will lawyer up. Because the only thing I was able to get out of these assholes was them to pay my medical bills and to pay off the remaining balance of my car, which did not get me a new car.
No.
It did not get me new transportation, nothing.
Well, that's like when my brother was killed. He and his wife they bought a house like the year before, and they had mortgage insurance. And my brother was killed in an ATV accident, and they were off-road in fields, and there was alcohol, but he was not legally drunk. And he was not driving either. He was a passenger. And they tried to, like, my sister-in-law actually had to sue the insurance company because they decided that even though he wasn't driving and he wasn't legally drunk, like he wouldn't have been busted for DUI if he had been driving. they said, well, there's alcohol, we're not paying. It's ridiculous. And here's a widow with 2 small children under 10, a 23-year-old widow at that. And yet it's like, oh, well, we're going to find some reason why we can't help you, pay your insurance you paid into. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's like with the ACA before President Obama put in the whole nixing the pre-existing condition. Is prior to the ACA, if you had, let's say, hay fever, and then let's say 10 years later you came down with asthma, and you required medication, your insurance company could refuse you because you had the hay fever. So that's why it's so important. Like, even
So why are
prior to
you
my
paying if you have
yeah,
a pre?
yeah,
Because
It's like, why you the time to check for the pre-existing condition is even before you sign the contract, before you start paying.
But
have you read the contracts?
But all companies did this. All of them.
Yeah, what it was is they would find an excuse. They'd go back through your file. Oh, you listed that you had hay fever when you were 10.
You can find anything wrong with
Exactly.
anybody if you really want to.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's why
And that's what they do.
why President Obama put in, no, if the person you have to cover them even if they have a pre-existing condition. Like in my case, prior to my strokes, I had broken my back, and it was never, after it healed and I went through therapy and all that, halfway through therapy, my insurance company dropped me because I became too expensive. My therapy was, I think for 3 months, was over $18,000 just for the 3 months. And I was slated for 6 months of therapy because I had to relearn basically not how to walk, but to get my legs to do what I wanted them to. I had lost so much muscle tone.
right.
So halfway through, my insurance company dropped, and there was nothing I could do. Now, an insurance company under the ACA can't do that to you. One of the things that, although it's in the Ryan plan, they have that they can't nix you for pre-existing conditions, but one of the things the Republicans want to get rid of, some of the more conservative, is the whole pre-existing condition. And it's the whole notion of let the sick get sicker and the sicker die. I mean, it's that whole, I got mine, screw you.
But don't forget, you can't have an abortion.
Yeah.
Yeah, even you can't have an abortion because we don't want federal money paying for it. Well, duh, federal money doesn't pay for it anyways.
Yeah.
Well, it does
How
here.
did they cut the food stamps?
Yeah. The point I really don't get is it's not just I've got mine, so screw you, right? It's actually a point of I'm willing to pay over the odds to get mine just so I can screw you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because the reason I say that is the US spends per capita pretty much more than anywhere else on the planet on healthcare.
3.5 times.
It has dismal coverage.
Yep.
On
dismal
there.
coverage and dismal outcomes.
Yeah. And procedures cost like 3 times as much or more than they do anywhere else in the developed world.
Yeah.
Because the insurance companies, the hospitals charge the insurance companies the most they can screw out of them, and the insurance companies screw everyone else out of as much money as possible because the hospitals are charging them that much. It's like Tex was saying he pays paid was like
what I pay now
$300
is
a month
completely
plus,
different.
Right.
yeah, plus deductibles. What I pay is in total taxes is about £300 to £400 a month.
I don't even remember.
And that includes there is some small charges like for prescription medications, and I mean it's like £8 or something for filling a prescription. It's nothing. And if I was really hard up, I could get that waived. But that will cover me for, as I said, if I had bronchitis recently, that's covered me for 2 or 3 doctor's visits, phone consultation, X-rays, and this means is I've been able to get the checks I need to make sure there's nothing more serious, been able to get the medication I've needed, and get back to work very quickly.
Exactly.
Without having to like sell all my possessions or sell my house in Craigslist or whatever.
With this healthcare savings account, if a bag of saline solution costs $1,000, how the hell are you gonna have money for anything if you get sick? Like you have, let's say you're walking down the sidewalk and some drunk driver flattens you with their car. You're not. There's no way you could pay for that.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a minimum wage job, you're screwed.
Yeah. Well, case in point, if I lose my insurance, I'm on 6 medications for my high blood pressure issues surrounding my stroke, etc. My one medication alone costs more than I make in a month. My one medication costs almost $1,000 a month. That's just one of the 6. Okay, so if I lose my insurance, please explain to me how a person who makes $850 a month is going to pay for a $979 prescription, and that's just one.
Yeah.
Okay,
how am I
let's
pay
see.
For my other 5.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sterile saline solution. This is bottles rather than bags, but hey, it's just salt water. You can get them on eBay, 10 times 500 ml for £20.
Yeah. Exactly.
On there, and if you were buying them in bulk, they'd be cheaper. So there is no excuse, and and for things like the tubing and the cannula and whatever else, again, those are only a few dollars a piece.
Yeah.
On there, and
That's what
basically it's ridiculous when like if you need a bottle of saline solution, is it's you're being charged $1,000. There is no way that's justifiable.
No, and that's what happens when your focus is only making profit and not actually performing the job that you're supposed to be performing. I mean,
or paying your CEO.
That too. Yeah. I mean,
$35 million bonus.
The people.
A lot of the rebuttal is like, go to the ER. Then, if you don't have care, go to the emergency room.
Who was it?
They sent me home 2 hours later.
Well,
yeah, I went to the emergency room. It took them 3 hours to stitch up my knuckle, and then I got a $600 bill for it.
Oh, $600's cheap.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That was after insurance.
Who was it recently said that
how many stitches was that, Tech?
There was somebody who recently said, and it was one of Trump's cronies, something to the effect that diabetics or people with chronic illnesses could go to the ER for their regular treatment.
Oh, I think it was Steve King.
Yeah, here's a tip. Next time you need stitches, you'd probably be better off going to see a professional dominatrix who does medical sharp stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
I actually know where to find one of those.
$250 and kick your ass as well.
Because I saw a bill for a dog bite, and there was no rabies series or injections or anything like that. All they did was clean it up and sew it up and take some blood. It was almost $50,000 because I went to the ER.
Yep.
Chippin says doctors and hospitals are going to let us bring our own bandages.
Maybe if we're lucky, we get to bring our own little paper cups too to take the medicine in. That way, we don't get charged $10 per paper cup.
Well, they
Oh,
won't let you bring your
Well,
own
I
medicine
know. I
either.
know when I went to the hospital when I hurt my back. This was like 10 or 15 years. Well, actually longer. About 15 years ago or so. I went in. I sat in a chair. Okay, I couldn't get up on the little bed thingy because my back hurt too much. So I sat in a chair. Did not have a gown. I got no medication. The doctor saw me for 5 minutes total. I got charged almost $6,000 for an
damn.
ER visit.
Yeah, you got charged for seeing the doctor for 5 minutes and for sitting in the room for so long.
Yeah. So when I said I couldn't pay, and I turned around and I said, "Well, are you going to pay for my rehab for my 3 herniated discs that you guys refuse to take X-rays and MRI for?" I said, "Should I just turn around and see you guys for failure to diagnose?" Needless
Yeah,
to say, I didn't have to pay that bill.
I guess so. Well, I think I've told the story of my ex-husband, who was American, who mushed his finger in armored combat, which that's a whole other story, but his finger got squashed and he had 2 stitches in his pinky finger. And we went to the ER here. He is an American, and all he had on him, because he'd only been here a year or so, so he had his American driver's license was his only official ID. So they treated him and sent a bill to which turned out to be an address he hadn't lived at in 2 years, but but they didn't say, well, how are you paying for this and whatever. And I think it was like $450, but it had only the rates had actually gone up that day. I think it was like it was like half that before. It was like 250, but it was like 450 to go in and get like the wound cleaned out and stitched up and sent on his way. But anyway, I think we are about the end of this evening, folks.
Yeah.
So does anyone have any final thoughts before we head on out?
Yeah, it's just on, as to say, the looking from outside, like the levels of those bills look absolutely insane compared to what we pay over here in the UK. And I know there's all the paranoia generated about evil communist socialist medicine and whatever by some people in the US. But I say it actually does work to have a single payer with fair prices on there, and it means that everyone is going to get sick of something at some point in their life and need some form of treatment, and it means that you don't have to sell your house or bankrupt yourself
just to
and you can
maintain
get
somebody else's profit margin.
Yeah.
just so that you can get basic treatment that you need. And having that kind of system where people have access to healthcare means that people are fit enough to work. Having things like unemployment benefits and covers means that people are not immediately on the streets if if they lose the job. If the company relocates and they lose the job through no fault of their own or whatever, then they've got the resources to go out and look for work, to get training, to get back into work and start contributing again. And it means that it actually reduces illness, reduces things like depression. I would say it's not perfect. We do have problems, but as I looking at the figures like Tech and Bridget have quoted, is just blows my mind.
Oh, totally. Anybody else? Joseph or Tech or Bridget? Anybody have a...
I'm good.
I've been engaging in some schadenfreude because I'm evil.
Schadenfreude can be good.
But there's, Kentucky overwhelmingly voted for Trump. And part of ACA was extending the black lung benefits.
Right.
Pre-existing
And
condition. Yeah.
the people that are on black lung insurance and getting benefits from that have been given letters that they're going to be kicked off in 2 months, and now they're screaming because they're not going to have insurance anymore. And I'm
Funny
like,
how that works.
imagine that.
Gee. Ugh, some people, man.
Bootstraps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta have some to pull them. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They should go out and find some. They'll be okay. If they go out and find them themselves, they'll be huge.
Absolutely.
And Medicaid being yanked, what are they going to do?
Yeah,
They can't work.
that's right.
They tripping.
So
Yeah.
they better just get really damn bootstrappy.
Get them.
And this is Bridget, and things like black lung are a great example of on their people.
Not my
There's a
fault.
lot of noise about deregulating industries and things, and with the coal industry is a great example of an industry where they're able to operate because a lot of their costs and a lot of the costs that they cause to society, they don't pay. So they don't pay for the damage that the pollution does. And they don't pay for the black lung.
And if they don't
They
get
don't
caught,
pay
they
for
don't
any of
pay
the
for the
clean
dumping.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't pay for the a lot of the dumping, disposal, all kinds of things. And if they did actually have to pay for those costs and damages, they would not be a profitable industry. So, and the companies then would have to invest in something else.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
So what we'd be doing is artificially maintaining industries at great cost to society by everyone else paying their costs for them.
well, it's this notion that if you take away any impediment to a business making profit, then that's somehow going to be better for the economy. But they don't understand is it's the people who patronize businesses that keep the economy going. And if they're too poor, too sick, and thus too poor to patronize, anything, then your business is screwed anyway.
If the the coal companies had to pay for, say, 50% of the asthma cases in the US or even in the States where they're operating at like $500 an inhaler or whatever it is, then they would be out of business tomorrow.
And if they were out of business tomorrow, maybe people might be more interested in investing in things like solar energy and wind energy and safer doing nuclear.
All those millions of jobs that would create.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of the economy's energy is into keeping the money flowing into the same pockets.
That's right. That's right.
And I mean, to people at our level, I mean, at the same social, economical level, I mean, their fellow humans' well-being is in their interest. But as soon as you cross class divides, that doesn't hold true anymore.
Yeah, the problem is that we're in the kind of situation where we're doing this is like keeping horse buggy manufacturers in business in the 1920s.
Yeah. Exactly. Like
the world has moved on.
Well, look at our skin scraping industry. I mean, really,
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thank you, everybody, for spending some time with us. And we'll go through and let everybody pimp their stuff. So, Beth, you can do my pimping for me this week.
Oh, fine. I just wanted to say one thing. We didn't bring it up during the show, but you had mentioned Second Thessalonians 3:10. It's the line that he who does not work shall not eat. I want people to keep in mind that phrase was very, very popular when Lenin was alive. In fact, he wrote about it in the first phase of the communist society. And what people seem to forget with trying to use Paul's words is that when Lenin used it, he was not necessarily talking about us poor people. He was talking about the butt heads that have CEO and CFO behind their names, not the so-called lazy or unproductive workers. So when you hear somebody mention Second Thessalonians, go look up the hermeneutics and the exegesis behind that verse, because it means exactly the opposite that the religiotards are using it in.
There you go.
But you can catch both Deb and I on Monday nights at Beyond the Trailer Park, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And this week we are having a gentleman on who used to be a minister, and I believe he was in the Methodist faith. I know he was Baptist for a while. And he basically was kicked out of his church because he embraced, as he calls it, Darwinism. I hate that term. I'm going to ask him about that Monday, too. But he's going to come and talk to us about, what happened with his church, how he embraced the evolutionary theory, why it changed, his whole outlook on life and how he handles things. So that'll be this coming Monday, and every Monday we do have a show. Beyond the Trailer Park is through Google. We'll be throwing up a link sometime Sunday or Monday. When Deb gets around to it. But that's where you can find both of us. You can also find me at doing 998 on Twitter. That's the easiest way. That connects through both my blogs and to my Facebook page, which is Beth A. Hambridge. And if you send me a friend's request, please say that it's through Beyond the Trailer Park, or I will ignore you. I'm getting a lot of weird ones again.
Awesome. Well, thanks for dropping in. And Bridget.
Well, thank you.
And I see we've got Kitty Cow there with you.
Yeah, Kitty Cow's.
Thanks for dropping by, and please tell people where to find your blog.
You can find my blog Between the Wheels at bridgetfitch2112.wordpress.com, and you can also find me on Facebook under Bridget Fitch. And if you want to send me a friend request, go ahead.
Awesome. And just to interject, you will find Bridget, Beth, Shujin, and I at ReasonCon on April 21st and 22nd this year in Hickory, North Carolina. So if you're in the area, come on down and you can meet both 3/4 of Beyond the Trailer Park and a chunk of Holy Crap.
Yeah.
So, yay.
And I actually put in my days request off for it, so it's official.
I am too.
Sweet. And Chris, thanks for dropping in. We missed having you around. It's good to see you again. Do you have anything?
I don't have anything to plug. Just I'd say it's great to be back. On there at the moment. Unfortunately, the way my life is going at the moment, I can't predict when and I'm going to be available at the ungodly hour of like 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have to do like over weekend on call duties and stuff for work. And I'm now spending a lot of weekends out of town. So I'll drop in when I can. But you can find me at Chris Sampson on Facebook. If you send me a friend request, please mention it's in connection with the show, because I get lots of weird requests. And I ignore all but the weirdest.
So what would you actually do for a Klondike bar?
Don't ask.
We'll talk about that later today.
I mean, I know what I would do, and I'm ashamed of
Define
myself.
Klondike bar.
Define Klondike Park.
Yeah.
Thanks for dropping in, and hopefully you've got your daylight savings time sorted out now. That'd be good.
That doesn't happen here for till next week, I think.
Yeah.
I better look it up actually.
They put it off longer. That way the cows have a chance to adjust. They don't want to confuse the cows.
I think in England it's the sheep more than the cows, but whatever.
In any case, voters.
It's got more to do with tourism, I believe, and entertainment than farming.
Probably. So, Joseph, tell everybody where to find your blog. I know you haven't updated it, but tell people anyway, because you will eventually.
Back of his head.
The promenator blogspot.com.
Bloodspot.
Blog. What did I say? Bloodspot.
You were
damn spot.
Bloodspot. Awesome, thank you. And Tech, thanks for dropping by. Do you have anything to plug? You don't usually, but I always polite to ask. Nope. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us.
I can put my ears. La 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 la. I can't hear you. How's that an impression of a fundamentalist Christian?
That's pretty accurate. Yes. All right, folks. Well, as I say, Beth and Shujin and Bridget and I will all be at ReasonCon in April the 21st and 22nd. So as I say, come on down and see us. And to everybody who's out at NanoCon today, from the few pictures I've seen, it looked like everybody was having a good time. And so I'm glad that seems to have been a success for everybody. Because I wish I was there, but if I was there, then there probably wouldn't have been a show. So I guess it's a good thing I'm not there.
And thanks for joining us, Sujin. We see you over there in chat. Hope everything up there is going great. Having a good time. Remember, pictures or it didn't happen.
Isn't that Internet Rule 34? No, that's if there's porn to be made of it, it can be made.
I do believe so, yes. Yeah. And I was also going to mention, because I said last week that we had a surprise at Beyond the Trailer Park, and that surprise, if you didn't watch last week, shame on you, but we have asked Morgan Stringer, who was formerly a host on No Religion Required, and also Tracy, the Godless Mama, to be new co-hosts with us. And we had a great time last week, and we're looking forward to having them back regularly in the future too, so that was really cool. So other than that, again, Shujin, good, hope you're having a good time over there, and hopefully you will come over for dinner on our way home. That would be good. But anyway, folks, until next week, everybody have a great week and a good night, and we will see you all here next week.